terminated. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, November 12th, 2025, and we are talking about coaches, general managers, and just general termination. Let's start in the association, where I think that everybody would have thought that Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, being terminated by the new owner, Miriam Adelson, wink, wink, Patrick Dumont, that this moment was going to come. When you trade someone like Luka Doncic and the Lakers get skinny and pleasant and sober and dry and prolific scoring and winning, and the Mavericks get hurt, Anthony Davis, protests, losing, despondency, Patrick Dumont getting the finger from people in Luka jerseys that have Lakers across the cover of them. Something's got to give. And this happened in a way where a new owner exposed himself as a new owner. We got word of a 10 a.m. meeting. That was the big breaking news. There was going to be a 10 a.m. meeting between the owner and the general manager, where it was likely that the general manager would be losing his job. So I would just like to make sure that you're aware that when we call a meeting with the general manager, the decision's already made. It's not like we're saying to ourselves, let's meet with Nico at 10. If he's got some good things to say about Anthony Davis's health, or if he has a plan in place that we think makes a whole lot of sense, then we're going to say, thanks for the meeting. Have a good lunch. See you at the game tonight. Once you're called into the 10 a.m. meeting, and then the team leaks what the 10 a.m. meeting is, bring your key card. It's over. And it's insulting that the Mavericks would like to let people know through sources that the decision was made after the Tuesday morning meeting between Dumont and Harrison. That's a bunch of horse hockey. So, given the fact that Dumont had decided long before the 10 a.m. meeting, let's think about how that works. Who does he go to as a new owner? Does he talk to the coach? Does he talk to the other owners like Mark Cuban, who still own a percentage of the Mavericks? Does he convene a meeting amongst the board of governors? Does he call Adam Silver? When we were firing a manager, we didn't really feel the need to speak to anyone because we knew exactly why we wanted to fire the manager, when we were going to fire the manager, and who we were going to bring in to replace that manager. We had it all planned out. In order to fire a manager, you can do it one of two ways. When you are angry at the manager, you leak the firing before you do it. When you are not angry at the manager because you feel as though that manager has done his best, that the team just hasn't performed, or you haven't given them the resources to perform, or that manager turned out to not be able to do the job the way you thought, whatever the one of myriad reasons could be, then there is a very easy way to get it so the media doesn't find out, because you're with the manager all the time. You don't need to call the manager and say, hey, can you come in at 9 a.m.? Well, David, I'm always in at 11 a.m. Why do I have to come in 2 hours early? You don't do anything that would indicate to the person you're firing that anything is different about the particular day during which you do plan to fire. You don't need to give context clues, because that leads to questioning of the employee or the manager or the GM, which leads to possibly lawyering up, which leads to possibly speaking to the media, certainly speaking to their family, maybe speaking to the players, maybe speaking to some of the other owners. Who knows what it could lead to? But to avoid that is easy, Patrick Dumont is too new at this to understand what could be avoided, what couldn't be avoided. And the reason why he stepped in it is that he found, and this is me speculating because there's no other explanation, no matter your political leanings, no matter your intelligence, no matter who your family is, none of that matters. Human nature. No one, with very few exceptions, no one likes to see something written that is negative about them. No one likes to hear from strangers and family and friends, are you okay? Is it true that blank? Did you see blank? Did you read blank? You think that owners do not care about such things, or presidents, or GMs, or managers, or players. Surprise, it's just what is said to you in order to give the appearance of robotic, of a hard shell. Nico Harrison has known from the beginning that he was the patsy for the trade because GMs are in this position every day. So what's funny about this to me, Coca? The Luka Doncic trade for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and like a first-round pick in 2029 for Luka, that's not a trade that a GM does on his own. It is easy after the fact when a trade doesn't work to blame someone below you in the food chain. It's what we all do. It's the way that we think can make us not culpable when something goes wrong. How many times in your business does your boss take credit for something you've done? And when something goes wrong that your boss wanted done, you're the one who gets blamed. Your bonus gets decreased. You lose your job. You have a bad performance eval. This isn't sports. This is business. Do you have the power in your business to do a quote-unquote Luka trade? It was one of my least favorite parts of one of my most favorite movies, Elizabethtown, the Cameron Crowe brilliant movie that no one liked, that is one of my favorites of all time. Blaming Orlando Bloom for the spasmodica, as though Orlando Bloom made every decision by himself, even when leading a team of designers. Is it possible Nico Harrison thought that defense wins championships? Is it possible that he thought that trading away Luka was in the best interest of the team? Yes. Is it possible that he was able to make that trade without Patrick Dumont and others in the organization giving the green light? No. And Patrick Dumont can't hide behind, I'm a new owner. I don't get involved. I let the general manager do whatever I want, whatever he wants. He's the one who knows it. I want to prove that I'm letting the basketball people do basketball things. It's simply wrong. It doesn't work that way. Patrick Dumont would have spoken to 15 people before trading Luka. People both within the organization, people outside the organization. You think he just sat there with Miriam Adelson and said, hey, mother-in-law, what do you think about the Luka for Anthony Davis trade? It's preposterous. And once a trade is done, you've got PR people who get involved in what the messaging is. And Nico Harrison, the message was defense wins championships. When you hear a guy say the same thing over and over in a press avail, and Coca, you're going to have to remind me, when the Red Sox did a post-Devers trade, Sam Kennedy and Craig Breslow were in two different places, and you counted that they both said something multiple times. And you may remember, but I don't. When Nico Harrison does his press conference and alignment, do you remember that, Coca? when Sam Kennedy and Craig Breslow talked about the importance of alignment, and they each said the word multiple times. And that's when we knew that Devers was there was going to be an addition in the clubhouse by subtraction, and that getting rid of Devers was the only way to save the Red Sox, and how great it was the Giants would take all that money. Remember that? That gets workshopped before. They didn't make up that word when they were meeting with the media. You meet with your PR people, you meet with each other, and you talk about what's the message, how are you going to say it? When Nico Harrison takes the podium after trading Luka, he doesn't just come up with, oh, defense wins championships. It's not like he just thought of it. When we made trades, we would say pitching and defense wins. We would come up with the word, this is a retool, not a rebuild. We would come up with everybody's open to be traded, but some people are less likely than others. Larry Beinfest is the originator of that line that was workshopped up and down the organization, and that is a line we went with for decades after. I can't underestimate. I don't know how to be any less passionate about the fact that if you want to blame Nico Harrison for the Luka trade, you are doing exactly what Patrick Dumont wants you to do. When you are burning his name in effigy because you are so angry that the Mavericks stink, you are doing what Patrick Dumont wants you to do, and he said so in the letter that he wrote about the firing. All part of his grand plan to make Nico Harrison the sole actor. We actually, behind closed doors, will call it the LHO. The LHO is something that organizations do, both sports and in business. It's the Lee Harvey Oswald. It's the single bullet. What can we do to make one person responsible for what everyone was involved in? How can we fire someone, whether it's a scout or someone in player development or a manager or a coach? How can we LHO that guy and make everyone believe that now that we got rid of that, everything's going to be okay? Please don't fall for it anymore. Nico, I'm sorry for you, but really? Really? I don't know that I feel sorry for Brian Daboll. The Giants fired their head coach. Man, the Giants are just bad. I think they're 2-8. I think they keep losing in the fourth quarter when they're up by 10 points, like 4 times this year. 4 minutes remaining. They had a 10-point lead. They've blown that a couple times. Doesn't really happen often. The guy's 11-33 in 4 years. After going 9-7 the first year, he went 11-33 after that. Brian Daboll is the guy that we talked about on this show who ran into the blue tent to find out about a concussion, got fined for it, and was seen on the sideline fighting with the team doctor. Brian Daboll is this intense guy, brilliant baseball mind. The reason why the Giants had to fire him and not fire their general manager is that the Giants ownership, John Mara, and the people in charge of the Giants, they realize that they're in the middle of what they have to embrace as a 2-part plan. Teams go one of 2 directions. Sometimes they fire the GM and the coach. Sometimes just the GM, Chris Greer. Sometimes just the coach, Brian Daboll. But all of those different paths all lead to the same thing. There will be more substantive change in these organizations. Mike McDaniel is not guaranteed to be the coach of the Dolphins going forward. Joe Schoen is not, and I forgot how to pronounce his last name, Coco. We did it before the show started. Joe Schoen. So 4869. Joe Schoen is not guaranteed to be the GM of the Giants at the end of this season. When you need to undergo what you believe is a full-scale reset, where you have watched your team underperform your expectations, no matter how unrealistic they were. And you can talk about the Dolphins, you can talk about the Patriots, you can talk about the Giants. There are myriad organizations in every sport where this happens every year, where an owner talks to his president and says, okay, Knug, this underperformance has to stop. What are the signs that we're looking for to start the process? How can we find a way where we can gain cover? What do we need? Brian Daboll acting the way he's acted, then the Giants losing the games in the way the Giants have lost them. That is what's known as the red carpet of openings to a firing. When you fire your coach like this, if you have an intent to go forward with your general manager, in this case, Joe Schoen, part of the firing has to include that. But the thing is, when you leak it and when part of the firing of the coach comes out, hey, we're not sure, the GM is around for the rest of the season, but no one's sure after that. Well, that means we are sure. That means that they've made the decision that they want to not rip the Band-Aid off one, so you lose all the hair at once. No, they want to rip it off and a death by 1,000 cuts. I am a fan of ripping the Band-Aid off because it gives you an opportunity for healing. It gives you an opportunity to start immediately. The team, and people are worried about this, so let me help you. If you have no GM of a baseball team or no GM of a football team, do you know that everything would still get done? The actual signing of players, releasing of players, managing of the roster, the technicalities of salary cap and all those things, there are myriad people within the organization who are doing that and who would step up to do the things required to get through a season. You don't need Joe Schoen to finish off this horrific Giants season. But when you are leaking out that we have no idea, we'll see what happens, why wouldn't you go the other way? Where you fire your coach and Joe Schoen stands up there, or your GM, and says, this was a decision that I made because I wanted to make it clear to the players, to the fans, to the staff, that the way we were playing, the way we were preparing was not going to be tolerated. We've got the talent here to win, and we need the right pieces in place to win. That is a strong press conference by a GM who's been told that he is going to continue in place. Conversely, when a GM isn't told, they meet the media and just say, listen, it's something that we all thought of as an organization, and we realized the team wasn't playing well, and we're going to write a letter to our fans talking about how unacceptable it is, and blah, 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 blah. It's such an easy thing for teams to do, and it all comes back to what you and I talk about. I don't like, in my new life, doing things that think you to be stupid, that you can't figure out what's happening. Well, this one, pretty simple. I'm going to the Giants game this weekend, planning to at least. Should be a very big game between the Packers and the Giants. Both teams need a win desperately. Only one of them is going to get it. Who would you believe in? Giants or Packers? Let's talk about money. Let's talk about Brian Kelly. Let's talk about a lawsuit between Brian Kelly and LSU. Let's talk about teaching you what is a declaratory judgment. We're not going to get too technical. You're not a 1L. You don't need to have gone to law school. But this is really good, and here's the background of it. When you're fighting with somebody and you believe that there is a certain part of the fight that you don't want to fight over because you are so sure that this is how it's going to be, you are so positive that you are going to win, you can go to court and you can say, excuse me, Your Honor, we've got a bunch of stuff to fight about. Could you look at this one thing for us? And could you just right now declare that we win? That doesn't mean we win everything, but just on this issue, Brian Kelly's lawyers are seeking a declaratory judgment based on a fact that Brian Kelly was terminated without cause. That is a major, major thing when it comes to all of these college coaches, all of these managers and NBA coaches, any coach. The fights that we've talked about on this show, from John Gruden to John Holmes, all are about when the firing happens, what does it sound like? Does it sound like you're fired? But what does it read like? You are fired because you were accused of and convicted of a crime. You are fired because your team stinks. You are fired because you did not represent this organization in a first-class manner because we saw you at Flash Dancers. The language that you use, which is why you never fire anyone one-on-one, you always have a third person in the room, HR, why you put things in writing, is because how you fire someone is a very big deal. The argument that LSU and Brian Kelly are in right now is LSU is claiming we fired you for cause. And the firing for cause was based on your behavior. And therefore, we don't owe you the rest of your contract. Because every contract that all of you sign, if you've ever signed a contract, no matter what you do for a living, there is going to be a provision in there that is termination. And under termination, it'll say for cause or without cause, with cause, without cause. It'll list all sorts of things. And you may think you only want to negotiate the term section of your contract, how long it lasts, how much money you're getting paid. Trust me, focus on the termination clauses because you're going to need them one day. Terminating for cause. Don't play basketball if you're a player. Don't go skiing if you're a player. These are baseball ones. Do not go skydiving, any athlete. Do not do anything that puts your body into second-class shape. You must maintain first-class conditioning. There are a list, and they get negotiated really hard. Why? Because of right now. The fight that's going to happen between Brian Kelly and LSU, and the reason why it matters, think about $54 million. If Brian Kelly's owed $54 million going forward under the contract he signed, and he is terminated without cause, he gets that money. But if he's fired for cause, he doesn't get any of the money. That is a major issue, but it's only one issue that LSU is dealing with right now as it relates to that $54 million. The second issue is something that's come up now with a bunch of different contracts of a bunch of different people who have been recently terminated, and it's called the liquidated damages clause. I used to call it in contracts the mitigation requirement. And that is a very highly negotiated provision as well. Mitigation is when you're owed $100 by somebody and you are let go. And therefore, there is a argument of, are you getting the full $100 or not? And the not comes when you have a mitigation clause that says, listen, you are a newspaper delivery person. I am firing you. I owe you $100, but you have a duty to mitigate. You have a duty to go to another newspaper delivery company and get hired and get paid. And whatever you get paid, you can't double dip, because if you get paid $10, I'm only giving you $90. You're never going to get more than the $100 you were going to get from me. And if we can get more than one person to pay for it, that would be great. When you don't have a duty to mitigate, you can take $100 from your current company, go get paid $10 from the next company, and then all of a sudden you're making $110, and then you're super happy that you got terminated because you've increased your pay by 10%. Another clause that needs to be highly negotiated by an agent with a team. There's several levels of mitigation. Take a coach. Sometimes a coach signs a contract that says you've got a duty to mitigate. You must try to find another head coaching job in college football. That's not a very heavy burden because it's easy not to get hired as a head coach somewhere. Sometimes the duty to mitigate says you must look for a job where you'll be an offensive or defensive coordinator or a special teams coach. There could be a duty to mitigate for a head coach that goes all the way down to being an equipment manager. But smart coaches would never agree to that. Smart coaches would say, the only duty to mitigate I have is if I take another job as a college coach in your conference. NFL head coaches, duty to mitigate. As a head coach, as a coordinator, there are certain contracts where your duty to mitigate has nothing to do with the area in which you work. If you are a football coach, your duty to mitigate could be to be a toll booth collector or an order taker at McDonald's. No head coach I know would ever sign that, but that is a global mitigation clause where you have mitigation requirements because you can't sit on your tuchus after we fire you. You've got to go back to work. What is way more likely, and the reason why there were so many negotiations around this mitigation, is that LSU and Brian Kelly had a contract that was very clear. That mitigation was about becoming a head coach, and Brian Kelly was saying to himself, I'm going to sit and eat good and plenty. And I'm going to take my $54 million because I'm tired. I'd like a bunch of years off. This would be a perfect opportunity to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. When you are the organization that is doing the paying, you can meet with the employee who you are terminating as part of the termination and negotiate right then and there. You've got no duty to mitigate. We will pay you every 2 weeks for the next 6 years, and you're going to get your $54 million. What would you say if we gave you $30 million right now? Right now. You don't have to wait around for every 2 weeks. We're going to give it to you, and we'll separate. Do whatever you want to do. We won't have to argue about duty to mitigate. We don't have to argue about anything. That is a very common argument, a very common negotiation. And the reason why it becomes a negotiation is a university, much like a business, is much better served capitalizing the entire expense of the terminated employee and bringing it all into the current year and just being done with it. Imagine having to pay someone not to coach for you $8 million a year for 5 years, and in your books, you have an $8 million expense with no concomitant revenue. You have to double up your coaching expense because you have to hire someone to actually coach the team. It's why you read about companies like Paramount, companies everywhere trying to buy out employees, trying to have employees take severance packages, trying to get rid of people who are old, people who are whatever they are, in order to have the entire charge now, and then the future looks better and brighter, both for earnings publicly or just as the organization's finances, like a college, which is not a public entity for the most part, their finances. This lawsuit is going to be a bear for LSU because at the end of the day, the judge and the courts are very reticent to look at a contract and try to say, well, LSU didn't mean this or Brian Kelly didn't mean that. They don't want to read the minds of the people. They want to look at the letter of the contract, the wording, what's in the four corners of the deal. There is no requirement in the deal for Brian Kelly to take a buyout. There is no requirement for Brian Kelly to negotiate, which he did. First, they offered him $20 million. Then before you know it, they were offering him $30 million. And Brian Kelly said, no, give me the 54. That's what I want. The fight is going to be about whether or not LSU owes him anything. Therefore, the fight's going to be about cause, without cause. Therefore, a court, when asked to give a declaratory judgment confirming something that would end a case, they are not likely to do it. A declaratory judgment takes away the argument from the other side. It quashes any factual findings or findings of law. It literally stops something in its tracks. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, fine. If it doesn't, fine. No problem. We will revisit it on davidsamsonpodcast.com, which is our website. It has merch. There's some great Nothing Personal stuff getting ready for the holidays for sure. Totally available to you. Great holiday gifts. But it also has a document that goes through all of our wait to sees. What we feel we do that's different here is we're going to revisit things we get right, things we get wrong. We make corrections because we make mistakes. The wait to see here, and it's official, Coca, Kelly and LSU, they are going to settle this case. This will not see the inside of a courtroom. It will not see a jury. It will not see a judge other than to ratify a settlement and to have the charges and the case dropped. It's not charges, just to have the cause of action dropped. Wait to see, Coca. Brian Kelly and LSU settle. Hey, Brian, don't settle for a penny under 54 unless you get the discount rate you like, and then you can take it all up front. Review. I love all the suggestions, even when I don't have time or energy or the ability to sit through a movie or a TV show. I am loving all the suggestions that come my way from all of you. So thank you. Keep them coming. There are people who know my taste. Some people I know, some people I don't know. One of the people who knows my taste really well is our esteemed producer, Matthew Coca. So when Matthew Coca tells me to watch something, there's one exception. I didn't watch one thing he told me to watch, or I started and didn't like it. It was a mini series, or it was a TV series about a bunch of people who were working as catering people, is the only thing I can remember about that, Coca. What was that show called? Party Down. I started Party Down and did not finish it, did not like it. Otherwise, Coca has been undefeated. He told me that I should watch the Lowdown, and I don't even think he had finished the entire series when he told me to watch it. And so I took his advice and I watched it. This is a show on FX and on Hulu that debuted at the end of September, and Ethan Hawke plays a truth historian. For fans of Basic Instinct, you may recognize Bobby Joe, who plays the wife of, if you watch Twin Peaks, Kyle MacLachlan. Well, the love, whatever, it doesn't matter what their relationship is. You may see character actors that you've seen before, but the focus of this series is Ethan Hawke, who, as a true historian, is a journalist out there trying to find the truth about a political family that may have some dealings that are less than perfect. Tracy Letts is never bad. Carrie Coon's husband gets the benefit of 79 doubts. I loved every episode, Coca. It got me after 5 minutes of episode 1. I couldn't go straight through, obviously, but I watched it relatively quickly. It's Ethan Hawke. I keep seeing Dead Poet Society when I look at him, but it's hard for me to believe how old he is now. It's hard for me to believe how talented he is. It's hard for me to look at Uma Thurman and their daughter, who's also in the business. It's all hard for me, the passage of time. But if you want 8 episodes of greatness and Ethan Hawke's character, how it develops and what he does to be a good dad, what he does to find the truth about corruption and speaking truth to power, it's a really good show. It's called The Lowdown. Season 1. I don't know if there's a season 2, actually, Coca, but season 1 was spectacular. Tomorrow, we're going to review Boogie Nights. That is our Thursday review. That is one of the final of our top 100 movies, also found on davidsamson.com. Boogie Nights will be the review on tomorrow's Nothing Personal. You want to bet on that? If I were you, if there were a market, now, a lot could happen. There may not be a show tomorrow, which there is. I may not get to the review, which I will. But is there a market? The reason there's no market to bet on whether or not I'm going to do a particular segment tomorrow is that there's too many ways that someone can get in the way of that. And there are too many ways for there to be an integrity issue between sponsors and Meadowlark and DraftKings and Coca and Jack and me. Myriad things could happen where I wouldn't do a review tomorrow. That's why there's no market for it. In Major League Baseball, there was a market for pitches. What's coming next? A ball or a strike? What's the velocity of that pitch? Over or under 94, which means you're betting fastball, slider, breaking ball, four-seamer, two-seamer. We did a whole show Monday about 2 players for the Guardians who are going to be banned for life, who were indicted, claiming they're innocent. They'll never pitch again. Remember Ortiz and Clase? Monday show. Well, something happened yesterday that we talked about on Nothing Personal, and it is a major, major event in the evolution of sports betting. There is now going to be a limit on the amount of money that can be wagered on certain individual prop bets. Meaning that the people who think they can go to a pitcher and say, I'll give you 10 grand if you tell me whether you're going to throw a ball or a strike. And then that player takes the 10 grand and then throws the ball and strike. The only way for the person who did the asking to make money is to go wager on the ball and strike and wager more than 10 grand. That's the profit. I bet 20 grand and I won, and I gave 10 of it to the player who did it. That is as old as the day is long. If your ability is only to make $200 on a particular bet, now, you could make $200 at DraftKings. Could you make $200 at FanDuel? Could you make $200 at BetMGM? Could you make $200 at Hard Rock Bet? Could you make $200 at Penn PointsBet? Add it up. There's a huge number of organizations, of sportsbooks, who are part of this new agreement with Major League Baseball, limiting the exposure to these type of bets that could easily open themselves to integrity issues. It is a great start for the leagues. It is a great start for the betting companies. As we talked about Monday, something had to happen, and it took about a day. But let's talk about it. When you read a DraftKings spokesperson say, in collaboration with Major League Baseball, we have adjusted certain bet types to further deter bad actors while helping maintain fairness and trust in the game. There is no better line that a spokesperson can give on behalf of DraftKings or any gambling company, because they need customers to believe there is fairness in any wager they make, on any wager they make. The minute one wager isn't fair, it calls into question every single other wager. When your bread is buttered by 80 types of bets, do you sacrifice one of those kinds to protect the other 79? That's just easy math. This was a give that the gambling companies could give to the leagues. But we've read a lot of different places that are going for even more. Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio, who MLB says they consulted with. Governor Mike DeWine is not about taking away the one bet about who is going to throw a ball or a strike. He wants to ban all prop bets. When Adam Silver talks in the media about what went on with Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups, etc., he talks about his desire to look at individual player-related prop bets, not just the under on assists for Terry Rozier. There are so many things that can be bet on, both live in-game, pre-game. What the gambling companies do is they know exactly the revenue of every type of bet. It's what any business person would do. You recognize how you make your money, what days you make your money, what sports you make your money. You then evaluate what a decision is and what the impact it would be to your business, whether it's de minimis or whether you have changed the entire way that you make money, and therefore you got to meet Wall Street analysts because you're a public company and your earnings are going to plummet because you have now given away a huge revenue silo. Didn't happen yesterday. There was no need for any sort of call to talk about what the financial implications of this would be on any of the gambling companies, and that still doesn't matter to me. The very act that these companies were willing to do in order to give the illusion that there is this level of fairness and trust is noteworthy. But is it effective? Do you feel that now having a ceiling on what you can bet for a pitch, that now you've stopped worrying about an outcome, that you've stopped worrying about any possibility of anyone approaching a player about anything? I haven't. It's the law of a squeeze toy. The law of the squeeze toy says when I squeeze a toy in one area, then it's going to blow up in another area. So I can constrict it here, but it expands there. Then if I grab it on the other side, it's going to expand where it used to be constricted. In order to get it as a sphere again, I have to let go completely, and so that it then has equal pressure on all sides. When we talk about tourniqueting a story so it goes away, and we've talked about that for 6 years, as one of the things you can do when you're having a PR problem is you tourniquet the story. The reason you tourniquet it is that you have a belief that if you can stop talking about this thing, that will be the end of it. The problem is if you tourniquet a story, which is secretly just constricting its blood flow, but you know you're holding a squeezy toy, and that by tourniqueting over here, you have expanded over there. Then you have to question what your policy is. My biggest concern with the announcement that was made with much excitement, because it got done so quickly after what happened with the Guardians, that everyone was standing up and raising their hand in pride that they were able to work together so fast. My concern is that it doesn't nearly deal with the issue. The issue has to be that maintaining the fairness and trust in the game comes from the gambling companies themselves, who are able to monitor wagers and catch people quickly and eliminate those people firmly, not putting them on administrative leave, not doing any sort of investigation. I'm talking about negotiating a CBA where when players are implicated because they're so stupid, they use their own name, they use their own account, there can be a totally negotiated set of rules that leads to the end of players being involved, being on the take. Will there still be a bad actor here or there who thinks they're above the law? There always will be. But having the rules in place that call for immediate, swift, and permanent justice, that call for a way to get clawback, even though you'll never find the money because players will spend it, but the fear of going to back wages, the possibility of a fine that is so significant that there'd be no way for the player to do anything but give up his house in the Dominican or in Kansas. I'm talking about a deterrent, the level of which we haven't seen yet, and that's what I want to see. Am I disappointed in the announcement made by MLB and by the gambling companies? Of course not. Is it significant that the U.S. sportsbooks were willing so quickly to work with baseball to announce this change? Yes, but doesn't it show you something? This isn't a surprise what happened. This had been going on for ages. All of a sudden, the indictment comes out, and 3 days later, the rule change happens. This is something that had been discussed, been contemplated, because when you have a company that is a billion dollar industry or company, you've got to think ahead and see what's around the corner. And this wasn't a shadow. This action has been around the corner since the building got built. When you know what's around the corner, you got to start dealing with it. The scary part is when you don't know what's around the corner, when you can't plan for something that takes place that you would have no way to in any way model. You'd have no way to even articulate or formulate a strategy because it's so ridiculous that it would happen. Yes, I'm talking about the way I feel now personally. Yes, I am. But in business, it can happen, but it's really rare. It's really rare for Patrick Dumont to wake up and say, man, I didn't know that people would be upset about a Luka trade. It's really rare for a league to stand up and say, I had no idea that players would end up getting money to take the under and pull themselves from a game. It's really rare that a sports book would wake up and say, I would not need to invest in the technology in order to catch people doing nefarious things who are involved in the games. All the sides of the coin knew about all of this from the beginning. So I'm not yucking on the yum of the announcement. I'm merely telling you that we're dealing with the tip of the iceberg. If you think that this rule change is going to take away all bad actors, and there will be no more players engaged in any nefarious activities related to gambling, then you have a level of delusion that may or may not be shared by people in charge of an announcement like this. The level of delusion has to be, hey, we're going to announce this. We're going to show arm in arm that we are here in order to help the game and to make people feel good about the activities in which they spend their time and money. But doesn't part of that announcement have to be that we've only just begun, Karen Carpenter? We will make sure that going forward, we don't wait, that we try to nip issues in the bud because we know exactly the flowers that we've planted. We know every bud. That's what I think you're going to see going forward, because while the other leagues may try to follow suit with what MLB has just done, all the other leagues know, especially the NFL, that they've got to be even 10 further steps ahead of this, because when you talk about revenue and money being bet and injury to the game and maintaining fairness, you're talking about the NFL. We'll have more after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson on a Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Welcome to hour two. We will get to So You Want to Talk to Samson, but hold that music because something has been getting me since Monday night, and I'm going to talk about it. Let's do the Nothing Personal pick of the day, please. Nothing Personal pick of the day. We had the Eagles plus 1.5 versus the Packers. We told you that should likely be Eagles minus 1.5. And the Eagles won the game 10-7. That is a win. We are now 140 and 142. We're on a bit of a heater at the moment. But I want to go back to the Eagles-Packers game just for a minute, Coca. It's 2 days old, but I have been trying to yell this to the sky. And now I've got a microphone. Nick Sirianni, what the hell were you doing on fourth down at the end of the game, having Jalen Hurts throw it into the end zone and turning the ball over on downs and giving the ball back to Green Bay so they could drive the field for a potential game-tying field goal? How is that even possible? Sirianni on the sideline losing his mind. Did Jalen Hurts do that by accident? Did he call the play that you didn't know about? Did he check out 3 other options and you had that as an option? Here's an idea. One of the options for the wide receivers on that fourth down play in the last minute of the game is not some sort of fly pattern to the end zone 40 yards away. Just a thought. How about keeping everyone within 10 yards? Oh, doesn't get anywhere? How about a handoff? Infuriating if you're an Eagles fan, inexcusable if you are a coach. But then something else happened in the game that caught my attention that I liked even more. There was a major 4th and 1 for the Packers. Our guy Jacobs, he's ready to take the ball. The play is called. Jordan Love says, Omaha, hut, ready, hut. And all of a sudden, there's a Philadelphia Eagle defensive tackle who's calling out the play to his defense. He's telling the defenders, hey, they're about to run it through the 4-hole. Get up in there. And Jacobs had nowhere to go, ends up fumbling the ball, trying to pitch it back to Jordan Love because it was a must line of gain had to be gotten on that fourth down play at that point in the game. Why does this matter to me? A, because both coaches ought to be fired. And I don't mean to be down on the floor. I don't mean to be down on Sirianni. He's done a great job. Both of them have. The play call by Sirianni on fourth down is enough that I would have lost my mind. But now let's talk about the Packers. You know that we try to steal signs. We have cameras that we are looking in at the catcher. So they came up with PitchCom, that now you press a button and it's inside the ear. All right, so how do we figure out now what the pitcher's throwing? Now we look for pitchers tipping pitches. We always did, but now it's more important. Now we have analytics go through trends because this pitcher against this hitter in this count, in this ballpark, this time of day, this inning will throw a 2-1 slider. And we've got the players ready for what that could possibly be. Tendencies. Look out. Be ready. We're also trying to figure out what the third base coach is doing during the course of a game. When he goes nose, chin, cheek, and he touches his arms, and then he rearranges his cap, and he takes 2 steps to the left, 2 steps to the right. If you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around, we've got people monitoring that, writing it down, looking for code breakers. You know, when you're a baseball team and you're playing another team in spring training and you start a pitcher against a team that pitcher is going to pitch against in the regular season, you know that what that pitcher does during spring training is often meant to provide bad information to the other team who's studying the tendencies. You tend to do pitches out of sequence because spring training doesn't matter. Results in spring training don't matter. It's like preseason in the NFL, the single most worthless piece of real estate out there. There are many coaches in the NFL who during preseason, will do a play, go through a play, and then when it comes time for regular season, they will line up in that same formation and do something totally different, much to the chagrin of the other team who thought the tendency was in this formation to do that play. These type of preparations, these type of setups, these go on in every sport. It is how you try to stay a step ahead of your competition. That's the macro. Now go micro. Micro is the approach that you have to hitters within a game. When I faced Ohtani the first at-bat, it was a first-pitch fastball. The second at-bat, it was a first-pitch fastball. The third at-bat, there's runners on second and third. It's the sixth inning, first pitch, breaking ball. Ohtani's up there thinking it's been fastball first pitch in the micro. Usually he attacks me with breaking balls, but he's been throwing fastballs first pitch. I'm going to get another fastball. Uh-oh. I'm swinging quickly. I just missed. The game within the game are the adjustments that are made by an analytics department, by a coaching staff, by players, all within a game. When you are a football team and you have been calling out a play, picture a basketball coach who during the course of the game stands up Eric Spoelstra style, runs to half court and yells, 2, 2, 2. And then it's the same pick and roll. God knows no one does the pick and roll these days. It's more like 1 against 4, get 4 people by the three-point line and keep swinging it, 1 extra pass to an open corner 3 and hope they hit 40% of them and we can score 125 points a game and bring excitement to our city. That's one thing. But play calls, pretty common. Wouldn't it make sense if you've called 2 a number of times and then all of a sudden the defensive team is yelling out 2, 2, 2 and they step into the passing lane because they know what's happening? Wouldn't it make sense to have a different P of A different plan of attack? For the Eagles to have figured out what the Packers' play was because the Packers had called it several times during the game, and then to have the defensive tackle actually yell the exact play out, and then to have Jordan Love still run the play, and then what's worse, to have Jordan Love say, hey, we thought it was a light box. Now, he was referring to what was going on the field, and he just said, hey, it still looked good. Therefore, we're going to run it. And guess what? Didn't quite work out. What do you do about that? Well, what you do about that is you make sure that you've got backups in terms of what the plays are. Why is that difficult? Because the players themselves study the playbook. The players know what a play is called. You can get totally screwed by confusing people. What do? Just talk quieter in the huddle, man. But we won. All right, our pick tonight, we've got the Knicks. The Knicks have been, the NBA right now, we're only 11 games in. Let's not go crazy. I'm not going to say the Magic are a huge disappointment yet, but they are. I'm not going to say the Knicks are still a favorite to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They may be. There's really good teams, really bad teams. The Knicks giving 3.5 to the Magic this year, that should have been too much. But given how the year's gone, it's not enough. We're taking the Knicks 3.5 over the Magic. All right, Coca, play some music, please.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson. That's Wednesday's second hour. Here's what we do. We take your questions. You can get on DavidSamsonPodcast.com. You can get on Twitter at David P. Samson. You can find me on the street, whatever you need. And if you get me, ask whatever you want, maybe you'll make the show. But we upped the ante starting in June, and we now have a phone number. The phone number that you're seeing on the screen is 631-377-4869. That's a phone number that you call, and then we may play your voice. You may hear your own voice if you ask a pretty cool question. That number again, 631-377-4869. We'll listen to as many as we can. We The number that make the show is obviously very few, but please don't give up. We love all the voicemails we've been getting. Coca, let's go to the first voicemail. I want someone to hear their voice right off the top. Can we? Is there a button? Coca's asking me to do a question that is first. Okay, I will, Coca. So I want to talk to Samson. Why would MLB teams offer long-term contracts when they don't know what the next CBA will look like? Couldn't a long-term deal end up being even worse when the next CBA is finalized? I get it, Coca. That's what we had first in line, and we couldn't go out of turn. That makes sense. We're a small shop here. So let me talk about that question, if you don't mind, because we are now in MLB offseason. We've got a bunch of free agents. We can talk about Kyle Tucker. We can talk about Schwarber. Let's just talk about the concept of a long-term deal and what changes could come in the next CBA. So at the end of this year, there's going to be a new CBA that is going to be negotiated, though we learned that during the GM meetings, there's already been a session, supposedly. Believe me, no deal is going to be announced anytime soon. However, could one of the things that the owners ask for is a maximum in contract term, where instead of 13-year deals and 12-year deals, that you can get a 8-year deal and that's it? Is there a chance that a player will not be able to make more than $35 million? Could that be negotiated? It could. Is there an opportunity where there could be a salary cap? We've heard a lot about it. It's possible. Given all the things that could possibly change, why would I sign a player to a long-term deal, which would be in violation of the very rules that may be put in place in order to make it so I can save money? The answer is the teams who are in the market to give the type of contracts that will be worse, higher, longer than what could be allowed in an ideal CBA world from an ownership perspective. Those teams won't feel screwed by the new rules. They'll feel fortunate that they were able to sign these players this year under the old rules, where they could flash their might, where they could crush their competition. The question that you should be asking is, why wouldn't more players ask for long-term deals this year and take them at a discount if they believed that long-term deals and the parameters around them were going to change in the next CBA? And the answer to all of the questions is that the way you act as a team, no matter what people say, the way every one of the 30 Major League Baseball teams will act, is that there's not going to be a work stoppage, that there's not going to be a salary cap, that there's not going to be meaningful change to the rules as they exist. That peace under Rob Manfred will once again reign. That even in the example of missing a week or two of the season, that can always be made up because the broadcasters are more than willing to do it, as you recall happened in the last CBA. All of those things point to a resolution, whether it's today or in a year, but a resolution that leads to games, that leads to signings, that leads to players being players and teams being teams. You cannot change your strategy based on a what if that is such a remote possibility, even though on this show I would tell you there's going to be a work stoppage. There is going to be a lockout in December this year. I guarantee it. Why do I know it? Because I can read the tea leaves within the ownership rank. I can read the tea leaves within the players union. Tony Clark and Bruce Mayer need a win for their constituents, for the players, and a win not manifested in an extra day off, another afternoon game, or a better plate of food pregame. They need a meaningful financial victory because it is their belief that not enough teams are giving enough of their money to their players. The owners need a win. The win the owners need is that they need to be able to deliver hope to their fans that overcomes their own incompetence. They need to be able to no longer say, hey, Dodgers, 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 Yankees. They need to be able to sell into the hope. My view has always been sell into the competence. Yeah, we are not the Yankees and the Dodgers, but you know what? We have just as good a chance to win the World Series as they do because we have the best front office in baseball. That is a very unpopular thing for small revenue teams to say ever, because publicly we want to say, hey man, we need help. We need help at the top. We need more revenue sharing. We need some sort of quashing of salaries, quashing of spending, because the appearance of and the inability to compete is so obvious. I always felt like I wanted to go the other way on that. But if you're asking why would MLB teams offer long-term contracts, the answer is because that's what they do. That's the answer. All right, Coca, are the voicemails all ready?
Hey, David. This is Christine from upstate New York. I wanted to say continued prayers for you and your family. I just want to start by saying how much I love the show. I loved it when it was 5 days a week, and I'd still love it if it were only once every 5 days. Whatever you do brings real comfort to people, and it means so much beyond baseball and sports. My question is about mental health in the game. When something tough happens, like giving up a winning run in the World Series or making an error that changes the outcome of a game, or facing a personal tragedy like Alex Vesia's, how does that support work? Do team psychologists step in automatically, or do players have to ask for help? And are those sessions ever required, or are they always up to the player? Thanks for the time, and hello to Coca.
Hello to Coca. You got to love when you end with that, Christine. Thank you for your well wishes, and I appreciate the audience who's allowed us to do 3 days a week here for a bit. Eventually, we will be back. I hope. It's hard to know what the future is at this moment, but in the meantime, we keep going. Your question is very important about mental health, and I'll just use it in terms of a few players. We've talked about Jeff Hoffman gives up that home run to Miguel Rojas, to literally right about to win a World Series. The famous Bill Buckner lets one go between his legs. Alex Vesnia has a child who passes away right at birth. What happens? Well, we have several layers of help. The first layer of help is a sports psychologist. Sports psychologists are those that are meant to be hired by teams that are there to get the best out of each player on the field. They are meant to give them the tools to get the most out of their ability. When you have clinical psychologists, sports psychologists can also deal with issues that are happening off the field, but it's not the specialty for most of them. Clinical psychologists are often not employed by the team, but are part of something called the Employment Assistance Program. The Employment Assistance Program is the EAP program. That's what it stands for. And that is when you make mental health professionals available to all of your employees, whether they are players, whether they are in accounts receivable, marketing, sales, finance, doesn't matter. The reason why you have this employee assistance program is for people who've got addiction issues, for people who have mental health issues, for people who are having problems at home with their families, struggling with whatever it is. And why do we make that program possible? We make that program possible because we want our employees operating with a full deck as often as possible for as long as possible. My view was, when I was running a team, that I didn't give enough at all. I didn't give enough. I mean, we hired a sports psychologist, ended up being the best in the game. Dr. Jeffrey Fishbein brought him in. The ability to make players feel good about their performances, good or bad, and to be ready for the next performance, that is invaluable to a team. Forget analytics, forget any of it, just the power of the mind. Clinical psychology, I think, is more what you're talking about with your question. And that's a tougher one because we can talk about visualization and we can talk about, hey, it's a game of failure. Definitionally, the greatest closer in the game blew a save at the most important moment, the biggest stage, gave away a World Series to the Diamondbacks, and he is a unanimous Hall of Famer. Trusting your stuff, knowing that the way baseball works is that your best is still eligible to be beaten by someone's mediocre every day, every moment. It's a very tough thing to teach someone, isn't it? That if you give your best and you're used to your best being good enough to beat just about everybody, but then somehow your best is beaten by someone else who it's not even their best, doesn't it make you question whether your best is good enough at all? Whether your best is actually your best, or is there more there? Is there more velocity? Is there more studying? Is there more video I should watch? What can I do to be better? The fine line we walk is we don't want any player to ever be satisfied. We want players to engage with failure because it will help inform them how to succeed. We want players absolutely to lose so they know how to win. That is a very tough thing to require of your employees because you know that you're setting yourself up for a short-term disappointment in order to gain long-term benefit. Boy, that sounds a lot like research and development, doesn't it? When you're investing hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to try to discover the cure to Parkinson's and realize that you're not there yet, so you keep going, and it may happen after you die. We're doing that with players. We are trying to set up their mental health to be able to withstand the everyday nature of the game in order to be at peak and then hope we're good enough to recognize that someone's peak when it comes is going to be better than anybody else's peak, and we put enough of them together and we can win a World Series. But what we don't take into account is the fight the player has with the wife on the way to the ballpark. The problem he's having when his kid isn't good in school or has a behavior problem in school. The problem that the player's getting a call from his wife because the son is running ramshod around the house while the player is supposed to be preparing for the game. It's what happens to us at work. If I get a call now during the show, it used to be I'd ignore it. Now, if I get a certain call during the show, I'm stopping the show, taking the call, dealing with the issue because I've decided that something that's happening now is of greater importance than anything I could be doing at work. But that doesn't happen often. The majority of things that are happening at your home or in your personal life that require clinical attention are things that can be cast aside for the 3 hours of a game, for the 2 hours of a show. How do we decide how to give that help? We can't force anyone to take therapy. We can force sports psychology onto the players by having the sports psychologist meet with the team, but we can't force individual therapy sessions. We can't force players to sit through a one-on-one where the sports psychologist goes through tools that are necessary for that player to get better. All we can do is make it available. Think about it from a clinical standpoint. It's the same thing. We can have someone ready to speak to Jeff Hoffman right now. If Jeff Hoffman says no, we can go to the agent. We can talk to the player directly. We can try anything that exists to get help to a player, but like everything, what do you need before you are able to be helped? You need the ability to ask for help. You need the ability to recognize that you need help. Those are tough 2 hurdles right there. We'll always have the 3rd hurdle available. Every team does. But all we should be talking about are the first 2. Recognizing you need it and then asking for it. And trust me, Christine, not everybody does. All right, Coca, voicemail, please.
Hi there, David. This is Aaron in Philadelphia. I had a follow-up question relating to the conversation around the Atlanta Braves and the increased revenue associated with their mixed-use development near the stadium. The question is, does MLB have any control over a team's pricing associated with game day, or at least the items that roll up into the revenue-sharing pool? One thing that came to mind is that if you own the entire entertainment district near your stadium, you could lure people to the area with cheap game tickets, knowing that ultimately they're going to be spending more money at your restaurants and bars nearby. So you can easily filter that money away from the baseball side And you could even make the case that your team, on paper at least, is a small market team. Just wondering what your thoughts are on how this could be manipulated. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. That's a great question. Let me start at the end and tell you that we've all thought of it. We've all tried it. Wouldn't it be great to bring in somebody, give them $1 ticket, give them a free ticket, and have them buy hot dogs, hamburgers, merchandise, parking, and someone who would not have come to the game, they'd come to the game and buy all the other cool stuff. Until you realize that the people who generally take advantage of free tickets or dollar tickets are people who sneak food in baggies, in their trousers. There is a direct correlation between the amount you spend on the ticket and the amount you spend on other stuff. One of the things we don't love, this is a secret, so shh, the really good tickets behind the plate where you have food that's included. The season ticket holders themselves, when they go to games, tend to eat less than when those tickets are given away to people who go in and say, oh my God, we've got these tickets. We never get to go to these games. Oh my God, the food is free. Oh my God, we're going to pound. Now, of course, from an expense standpoint, there's an amount of food that is all part of the deal we have with our concessionaire. But there are examples, if you do dollar dogs or if you do some sort of promotion that is a specialty, the team suffers if you lower the price of tickets also. So there is no team that would think to cheapen tickets in order to get more revenue elsewhere inside the ballpark. And that would inform how I feel about the ballpark villages. If you give someone a $1 ticket and you think they're going to go to one of your restaurants and spend $100 on dinner before the game or lunch before the afternoon game, it's just not going to happen that way. That's number one. Number two, the question you're asking about MLB control is a great one. Sorry, MLB, but here we go. MLB controls postseason pricing. We submit as a team what we want to charge for each game in each section. MLB approves it. When it comes to the regular season, MLB does not approve that. MLB, however, looks at our financials. So they have access to every price point for our tickets. They have access to our projection. We expect to get 25,000 people a game. We expect the average ticket price to be $1. We expect total ticket revenue to be $8 million. Whatever the numbers are, MLB sees it. The CFO of MLB can call you about it. The deputy commissioner, the commissioner, you can hear from myriad people about your projections, but they do not have the right to go granular and say, we believe that between first and third for Tuesday night against the Yankees, that you should have a dynamic price of $70, not $62. That does not happen. Come playoff time, when you are dealing with money that is shared as part of the player pool and the umpire pool and the team pool, etc., MLB pool, MLB has absolute control, but they want you to do the work first. Why do I think that the Atlanta Braves, who are the best example, why do I think that they are not screwing around with that type of in-game revenue in order to bolster their entertainment district revenue? Because I know the Braves and I know what goes on around that organization. There's a story that my grandfather once told me, and the story goes something like this. David, no one ever got poor paying taxes. And I have a corollary to that story. Aaron, no one ever got poor by having to pay into revenue sharing. No one ever got poor by having to pay a luxury tax bill. And the reason I say that is that every team who has a luxury tax bill, every team who pays into revenue sharing, that payment is budgeted. Those teams know what their cost of doing business is, and they take it into account when they're doing their player payroll, which is the biggest factor in the profitability of your team. Each team knows that if they are revenue sharing payors and they do something to raise revenue in their ballpark, they are giving away 33 cents of that incremental dollar, roughly. If you knew that you had to give away 33 cents of every dollar that you earned, would you decide to not earn money because you're only making 66 cents? Or would you figure out how much it costs to get that extra dollar, knowing that it costs 33 cents in revenue sharing, it costs 10 cents in staffing and 10 cents in build or physical expenses, extra air conditioning, whatever, and that's 53 cents. Well, my margin is 47 cents on the incremental dollar. In what business world, when you've got a 50% margin, are you not going forward and trying to prosper? It's every world. I have not come across a team who did not want to raise their revenue because they were revenue sharing payors. I've come across teams who have tried to hide broadcast revenue for sure, because they own the broadcast network and they own the team. So they try for funny business, which MLB catches them at every time. The Braves, while they benefit from their ballpark district, the reason why they're not the example to look for is all of this is public, though MLB has access to everything. There is simply no way to justify an out-of-market revenue for X as a way to hide a lower than market revenue for Y, with Y being your team in your ballpark. There are people we employ to stop that from happening. That's the second reason. But don't forget what the first reason was. The first reason was lowering your tickets to attract less well-off people. I'll just say it, is not a way to make more money. Giving away free tickets doesn't help your merch, your F&B, your parking. It does nothing good. It's why teams hate to do it. It fails every time. Trust me, I'm right on that one. I've tried it. All right, do we have another voicemail, please?
Hi, David. The other day you mentioned that the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, was the worst owner in professional sports. Do you really think that's true? I think that there's a lot of questions we could raise about this. For example, have we thought about the owner of your favorite team, the Ats, John Fisher? And what about the owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Bob Nutting, who takes the memorial bricks that fans paid for and sends them off to the dump? And then let's go to the capital of bad owners, New York City. James Dolan, thin-skinned Dolan. And then the king of them all, Woody Johnson. So my question is, do you really think that Stephen Ross is the worst owner in professional sports?
I'm so happy. I believe when I said Stephen Ross is the worst owner, I believe what I said, the worst owner in South Florida. And I believe it may have been on Dan Le Batard's show. But let me get to this. It's a topic that I do enjoy discussing. How do you define worst owner? Who the worst owner is? We can rank team performance. That's easy to do. In theory, if your team has the best record over a period of 10 years, does that make you the best owner? The NFL has all these other ways of rankings through their ridiculous questionnaires. Who's got the best training room? Who's got the best team charter? Who's got the best weight room? Who's got the best whatever? And they rank the teams. If your team has the best score, does that mean you're the best owner or the worst owner? I believe Clark Hunt, the owner of the Chiefs, I may have this wrong, Coca. I believe that Hunt of the Chiefs, in the questionnaire of good owners, always ends up around the bottom. Meanwhile, he wins rings. And I believe the Dolphins always end up around the top. That they've got the best facilities, they've got the most comfort, they've got a great city, great weather, great parking, whatever. So what are we judging when it comes to worst owners? Are we judging popularity? Are we judging looks, religion, sex, length of service? Can you be a bad owner if you're just starting? Oh, you get the benefit of 6 doubts. You keep saying something and we're going to believe it's true, even if we didn't ever mean what we said to start with. Oh, we get the benefit of the doubt. Can you be a good owner if you inherited a good team and the team stays good? Nope, can't be a good owner in that way because that team was built by somebody else. You can't take credit for the big salad. Can you outperform your Vegas projection? Does that help? Over-unders 40 and you win 60. Holy crikeys. We still lost 100 games, but man, oh man, did we outperform by 50%. What a good owner. What about being nice? I see the owner. He takes a picture. He shakes my hand. Does that count? Is that what a good owner is? What about an owner who is smart enough to make himself the GM because he's going to run the team anyway? Is that a good owner or a bad owner? That team is worth $12 billion. Good owner, bad owner. You mentioned in your question John Fisher, Bob Nutting, Woody Johnson, James Dolan, the usual suspects. Believe me, our owner used to be in that conversation too. Worst owner ever. I never really understood. All I wanted to ever know, what are the rules? What are we basing it on? We can't be basing it on World Series because clearly we got one. Are we basing it on the fact that the Knicks have not won a title since 73? James Dolan, bad owner. Well, there are a whole bunch of owners who have been around who haven't won a championship or a World Series. How about relocating a team? Bad owner? If you talk to people in Vegas, John Fisher, great owner. We're getting a team. Art Modell, they don't hate him. Peter Malley, oh God, the Dodgers are going to LA. Still hated in Brooklyn, pretty happy in LA. Do you have to be hated by everyone? It can be loved by some, hated by others. Can Knick fans love, let me do it in football, it's way easier. Can Giants fans love Woody Johnson just because they hate the Jets so much? They love the fact that Woody Johnson has been so incompetent, that the Jets have been so bad, but Giants fans would vote for him as the best owner in sports because he is doing exactly what you'd want a Giants fan to want a Jets team to do, and that stink. If you are a big Marlins fan in Miami and you don't want the Dolphins to be good, Stephen Ross should be your hero, man. Covering up everybody's failings by his unbelievable failings. So my issue with the question and with the discussion, do I think that Stephen Ross is the worst owner in South Florida? Yes, I do. Do I think he is the worst owner in all of sports? Boy, that's a tough one, but I have to go with no. And the reason I don't, not about profitability, not about business, not about just wins and losses. I'm looking at a package. It's my package. It's my criteria. I'm looking at the totality of the experience that an owner has given me or that I've been able to understand the owner has given others. I'm looking at things that you may not agree with, you may not be looking at, the media may not agree with, and the media may not be looking at, but I'm looking at what is the owner doing overall as the steward of this franchise? For him, for his partners, for his players, for the fans, for the business community, for the political community. I'm looking at all sorts of things. Stephen Ross, the worst? Definitionally, he's not, because his ballpark and his stadium around there, it's so great. I like the question. I'm going to think about it. Maybe I'll rank it. Who are the worst owners? I could do a top 10 off the top of my head, but let me leave you with the worst in my mind. The worst owner in all of sports Every single sport. God, I want to say Jimmy Dolan, but I can't. Sells out the Garden, printing money. Can't say he's the worst owner in all of sports. God, do I want to say Woody Johnson so badly, so badly. The guy's an ambassador. The guy figured out a way to be close to power, to build a family fortune, to have a team that had a couple of years of winning with a since fired broadcaster, but that can't be the worst owner in sports. The Pittsburgh Pirates. You'll never hear me saying Bob Nutting is the worst. They have open windows and closed windows. They find a way to draft pitchers, one of whom is going to win a Cy Young coming up tonight. That can't be. Well, that should immediately not qualify you as the worst owner, that you are able to hire someone who's able to draft someone who is the best in your sport at something. So that can't be it. Is there an owner that has overseen nothing but incompetence, nothing but losing, has not added value to the organization financially in terms of its worth, has not been able to build a ballpark, has not been able to in any way increase revenue, who has stayed throughout his entire course as absolute crap? You got to choose a new owner, don't you? You can't choose one of the owners who bought a team for $100 million and the team is now worth $4 billion, can you? Don't you have to choose someone who bought a team for $6 billion and now has a problem? Or a guy who bought a team for $2 billion from the Angeloses and the team has now gone back into a rebuild because they can't win? Isn't the current worst owner in sport David Rubenstein? Can you imagine me saying that a new owner is the worst owner in sports? Someone who would never appear on any list because he's done nothing wrong? On the other hand, hasn't built value in the Orioles. They're not worth more today than they were yesterday. Hasn't won games with the Orioles. His season had a very disappointing season. Didn't make the playoffs. They're not drawing at Camden Yards. They have a problem with their network, Masson. It's not like there's all of a sudden this great real estate development around. Could it be that's where my head is? That we can't go to old-time owners definitionally of any type? David, it's nothing personal, obviously, but I think, according to my list, Steve Ballmer. What's the next question, Coca?
David, this is Mike in Tacoma. I was just wondering if you could speak to the differences in team ownership when it is a single owner versus a group of owners, maybe like we have here with the Seattle Mariners. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your show.
Thank you. That's a good question, Mike from Tacoma. A single owner versus a group of owners. What would you say is the difference in your world if you were the only boss and you didn't answer to anyone? Because in the world of, let's say, Wall Street, a CEO answers to a board of directors. In sports, a commissioner answers to owners. In sports, a president answers to his owner. Let me think about this. Is there a scenario where answering to a group of people is ever better than answering to nobody? No. You always want to answer to nobody. You want to be the buck stops with me and I get to do whatever I want. You know what? I may fail. I may become the worst owner, but guess what? It's all me and I love it. I always love being the one who takes responsibility. I want to be the one in control. I want to be the one blamed when things go bad, and I want to be the one applauded when things go right. That is the essence of control. It's being able to take the bad because you want the good so badly. When you are running a partnership as a general partner, guess who you answer to? Unless you've got control over the limited partnership by owning the most limited partnership shares, you report to the limited partners. The limited partners could remove you as general partner under certain rules of the partnership. Do you know the whole issue of who killed the Montreal Expos? The whole problem is that our owner not only was the general partner, but was able to take control of the limited partners. He was able to own the most limited partnership shares, which gave him complete and sole control to be blamed for the bad, but to also do the good. Now, there's certain provisions in a partnership agreement that no matter what percentage of partnership you own, you don't control. Let me give you a great example. If you're the general partner of a partnership and part of your job is to run a baseball team and you get paid by the team $1 million to run the team, the partnership, and this happens in all partnerships, the general partner gets paid a fee to be the general partner. Let's say your fee is $1 million and you're the general partner. Then let's say that you control all the limited partner shares because you own 51% of them. And let's say you're allowed to change the rule, change the agreement, that instead of being paid $1 million, you're going to be paid $20 million a year. And no one can say a word about it. Well, partnership agreements that are signed by two people with a pulse contain a provision. The provision is that a general partner has certain powers, certain rights, one of which is not to add to what the agreed upon fee is that the general partner receives, no matter how much of the limited partnership that general partner owns. In our case, it's not that the management fee could be improved and increased by millions. It had to be approved, any change by the limited partners, no matter how little of the partnership they owned, no matter how much we hated them and never talked to them and how incompetent they were. So a single owner who doesn't have to deal with any limited partners of any kind, doesn't have to deal with anybody. Steve Ballmer owns 99% of the Clippers. He gave 1% to Dennis Wong. Dennis Wong has zero power of anything, including what management fee Stephen Ballmer could get. And the reason why owners but it's becoming more and more impossible as more groups are being put together, as prices of teams continue to skyrocket. The concept of the single owner has basically gone the way of the wagon. The reason why groups are taking over with prices this high is they've got to cobble together the money. And when groups own something, they have to give the power to a general partner, the control person, the governor of the team. But there are rules for that governor to follow or for that general partner. And those rules are laid out in a fully negotiated partnership agreement, which, side note, doesn't do anything other than provide a blueprint for what that control person or general partner has to do. You can't put in a partnership agreement that an LP can tell you to trade or not trade Luka. You could put in a partnership agreement that a limited partner has the right to be there at the table when a decision is made on whether or not Luka's going to get traded. All of the things that we heard about Mark Cuban wanting to be in the room when Luka was traded, not being in the room when Luka was traded, not having any say, wanting to run basketball operations, but of course not, wanting to be the governor, but of course not. All of these things get negotiated because partners exist. Therefore, you have to negotiate all of these things. Isn't it better to not have any partners? If possible, that's what you would do. But it's not. I think the reason I like that question the most is that I think, Mike, that goes for anything. It's like a marriage or anything. Isn't it always better if you don't have to ask anyone anything? Isn't that definitionally what selfishness is? When you can do whatever you want, whenever you want to, without any ripple effect to anybody? I don't know. It just doesn't happen in sports. I didn't hear you, Coca, but I think you said we're done. Already? All right. Thank you for your questions. Please continue to call the number. So many questions. We love it. We'll do it again next Wednesday. To all of you who got on the air, thank you for everything. It's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. Coca, second hour. This is nothing personal.